didn't feel like there was that many crashes in the Tour de France. I felt like it was one of the safer ones that I've ever seen. So, but I will say when they do crash though now, Phil, it's apocalyptic because they are going so fast.
In motor racing, if there's a problem, they put a yellow flag up in F1. That means the riders have to back off the gas pedal until the problem's solved. You try putting a yellow flag up in the Tour de France when it's coming down a Pyrenean pass. Expect to ease off because they're coming down too fast. I don't know the answer. I honestly think there isn't.
When Tadej was first riding with his team, the team was okay. It wasn't great, but now this team is incredible. I mean, they could have 3 different Tour de France teams if they want to.
When I came down the mountains with a team car once, the team car didn't make the left-hand bend on the hairpin, and he sailed up into space.
I've been plenty of different events since the Olympics, and everyone comes up and asks me, well, what's going to happen now that Phil is retiring? Set the record straight here, Phil. What is going on?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Podium. I hope you know I'm Phil Liggett, and I hope you like the tan, because I'm actually at our African home, right on the borders with Botswana and Zimbabwe. But the wonders of the magic of the airwaves, we're delighted to bring you this edition of Beyond the Podium. Well, there's plenty to discuss around the world of cycling at the moment. We've chosen 2 topics, in fact. The first one is what Jonas Vingegaard has been saying about he might ride in the Giro d'Italia next year, although he says he favours the Tour de France above all. And the other one, of course, is the recent words by Critérium, the director of the Tour de France, who has said he's not blaming the riders so much as he is actually saying things like the riders are racing too fast. Yeah, I thought that's what bike riders were supposed to do. Anyway, I'm delighted to welcome the man I've never seen since July and the end of what was a fantastic Tour de France. Christian, you are looking great, man. You must be riding your bike every day.
I've been riding a lot, Phil. I've been quite busy. I was actually just riding with Bob Roll over the weekend in Tucson, Arizona, and George and Chloe Dygert, Olympic champion. Got to hold her gold medal. That was a first for me to hold the gold medal from Paris. That was really fun. But yeah, great to see you, Phil. You got a beautiful tan. You're just rubbing it in on everyone who's freezing out here. We have Thanksgiving coming up this Thursday, so we're all ready to play, football and eat way too much. And you're looking splendid. Apart from, and thank you for taking a break from fixing your leaky toilets to come and chat with us for a little bit.
It's made of my life, that, Christian. It really is. Whenever you go away, there's so much iron because our water comes out the ground literally, and it's full of iron in it and all scale and stuff. Our toilets last about 5 minutes, over the wall, put new toilet in. And that's how we live here. But we love it, of course. Just out my window, I'd love to show you. There's 5 elephants at the moment. But that's
show us, Phil, please. No, just at least just show us the back.
I'm going to take you outside, everyone. This wasn't part of the script, but here we go. Hold on now. And there never was a cameraman, so be careful, everyone. Here we go. This is the door. Be careful, Phil. I've got to. There was a hippo came past not long ago. Now, Trish there, she's dancing on the deck because she finished 4th, by the way, in the British Championships just before we came here. Unbelievable. She's so old, they couldn't remember her. Right. This is the beautiful Olifants River. And it's coming up 6 o'clock at night here. And we're dark because we're near the equator by 7. And I have to tell you, Trish, did the elephants disappear?
Yes, but the sandbank come up, there's a croc there too.
Folks, well, the elephants are gone, folks, but there is a croc. But he's on the sandbank in the middle. And I'm afraid my expensive computer won't show you that picture. But hey, this is the bush. This is how I love spending my life. And even here, every day, I read all the facts and figures on the whereabouts of Jonas Vingegaard, Tadej Pogacar, and of course the comments of Christian Prudhomme. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So,
wait, Phil. First of all, thank you very much for that. I need to get out there. Leah's been yelling at me to go out there at some point in time. But before that, I have a bit of a bone to pick with you. I've been plenty of different events since the Olympics, and everyone comes up and asks me, well, what's going to happen now that Phil is retiring? I said, Phil is not retiring. In fact, my father even called me up during the Olympics when I was in NBC Sports and said, Phil's retiring. And I said, I'm pretty sure I would know, Dad. Come on, he's not retiring. So please set the record straight here, Phil. What is going on?
Well, first of all, to John, say thanks for caring about me, John. It's a long time since we've met. Well, I did my 17 Olympic Games in Paris, and the producer of the program was at the end, because I worked for Australian television, said, we'll see you in Los Angeles. I said, I doubt it. I said, it'll be far too old. So I think 17 will be my end of my Olympic career. My first one was in 1980 in Moscow. So he said, can we put that on television? And I said, well, it's probably a fact of life, so sure. So I did a breakfast program in the evening in Paris, but breakfast time in Australia, and said, the guy who I knew very well, and it was correctly done on the TV, but it was badly reported in Australia. He said, okay, he said, we'll see you in LA. I said, no, probably not. I said, look, I don't want to bore the people for the rest of my life. And I want to walk out with my head held high. So I won't be in LA. Okay, so you're retiring from the games. I said, yeah. And that was how it went. Headline in I think it was the Melbourne Age newspaper the next morning or the next day, said, Phil Liggett retires from cycling commentary. Wasn't quite what I said. So, and then within minutes, the phone starts, then the emails, then the WhatsApps, all wanting stories about what am I going to do with my life after this? Well, there isn't much life after this at my age. And so I just said, well, I'm not retiring, but it's rather like reading your own obituary before you die, you know, because all these people that sent all these mails to me, they just said how much they loved their lives, had grown up with me from 1978 when I first started. They've now got their daughters, have had kids, and I'm great-granddad, etc. And they tell me the whole life stories. And they were so, I could have written a book on the emails, but I had to write back to everyone and say, guys, I'm sorry to break the bad news. I'll see you next year. And that's how it sounds, Christian.
Well, thank God you put that to rest, because it was getting old. I mean, everywhere. I mean, the Peloton, it didn't matter where I was. There was always a question and a point of contention with people. I can't believe I don't know what I'm going to do. What's going to happen to the show? How is this going to change everything? What about Phil? My Phil is not retiring. It's a clickbait. It was bad reporting. So thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. We got 52 tours and counting, buddy. I mean, more than I've been alive. So I'll never catch you, Phil.
Hey, thanks for the question. I didn't prompt you to say that, but thank you for thinking of it. Yeah, I miss you, man. I'm Bobby. Yeah, I'm like Bobby since the river.
Likewise, you know, we got a good crew here, and thankfully we have such great bike riders to hang out with, and the old guys we still got every once in a while. Even Bob Roll, I tell you what, he looks so good over the weekend. Phil, he's still so fast on a bicycle, but not as fast as guys we're going to get to in a second. I mean, we're talking about with Tadej and of course Jonas. And the biggest question, and we've got so used to seeing Tadej be completely dominant this year, and it's hard to think of life without Tadej on the top step of every Grand Tour and race, frankly. It doesn't matter which race he shows up to. His win ratio was insane for any kind of sport, to think of how many times he won this year and the way he won it as well. But, you know, we have to also think of what it'd be like to see Jonas healthy coming to the Tour de France. And is it too far to think of that it's over for a rider like Jonas, or is it just a one-off just because we should be appreciative of what he did coming from almost his deathbed in Pays Basque to what he did in getting on the podium in the Tour de France?
Well, I'll tell you, with the drive that Jonas has, it's certainly not over, Christian, and we're going to call him for the years ahead. I don't know how long I'll be calling for the years ahead, but you, for the 5, 6, maybe 10 years of calling Jonas. This guy, the thing is, when you look at his body shape compared to Tadej, he looks a very frail individual. It's almost like a scarecrow talking to a well-built giant. And I think he just was a brilliant champion for me in this year's Tour de France, because there's no way that guy, he pinned a number on for the first time since his accident in the Tour de France, and he finishes second again. He's also won. He's never finished worse than second against one of the greatest riders who's ever lived. And he wouldn't take no for an answer until the last couple of days, when he knew after he tried his best, he was beaten. This guy has the drive of a champion. For me, he doesn't have the body of a champion, but he's a light guy. That's why he climbs well. Tadej's a bit more rotund, I think, and a bit more strong in all departments. However, Jonas Vingegaard will be back big time. He's a dad now of 2 kids, and they drive him on and they support him. They're always at the stage finishes. He never believed Pogacar would win that Tour until about 48 hours to go, and he said it. He can't win the Tour now. Fair enough, but what a way to lose the Tour. He was superb. So now the question is, of course, will he ride? Somebody started the rumor, and it wasn't me, about him taking part in the Giro d'Italia, maybe because he saw Pogacar win it last year and go on to only be the 3rd guy to win the Triple Crowns, it was called. Somebody named it. And now he's going to stand on the outside and decide if his program will take him through the Giro, but he wants the best form for the Tour. And if his coaches start saying, look, if we do the Giro, you're not going to make the condition you want to win the Tour or beat an on-fire Pogacar, then he won't ride the Giro. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you, Phil. There's no doubt about it. What I saw, especially in the last week, the tenacity of this bike rider is it's truly incredible. I mean, really going against all odds, even to show up at the race. I truly didn't think he was even going to come to the race at all, let alone do as well as he did and post some of the best numbers he's ever even posted, even when he was winning. So I don't think I'm with you 100% that he's not going away anytime soon. This is a slow time of the year for cycling. So of course we're going to have some clickbait articles, what we're referencing right now and what he's going to do. And, I think last year's a great example of that. You could have the best plans in the world. You do not know what's going to happen. I would say that during my career, maybe 2 years, the plan ever actually came to fruition, what race schedule I was going to do because of sicknesses or crashes or injuries, things like that. It's just a fact of life. I mean, we think the same thing happened to Tadej just a couple of years before that, in this crash in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So we always have to remember that it doesn't really matter what happens today. It doesn't matter what they're going to say in training camp, because everything can change at the flip of a switch, and it's a completely different animal immediately. Wout van Aert's another great example of this. I mean, what has happened in his career over the last couple of years with his crashes. So no, but what I saw this year, I was stage 19, where he just completely emptied himself and just got beat up again by Tadej, when he took his teammate Jonas Vingegaard over from Matteo Jorgensen being caught with less than a kilometer to go. I mean, what he looked like when he was hugging his wife, it was not tears of elation or anything. It was just a relief that it was almost over, that he's almost done it, really almost the impossible. So that was really interesting to see in person, his psyche kind of unfold a little bit, and how much endearment he has for his family, and he's just completely an animal on the bike. And like you said, a frail looking guy, but an absolute warrior at the same time for what he's done, and the never say die mentality as well.
100%. He's got to. The thing is, he believes in himself. He believes 100% in himself as a champion of the Tour. Hey, when you ride the Tour de France and finish second in your first one in 21, then you go and win 22 and 23, finish second in 24, never out of the top 2, neither's Tadej. These are the 2 most incredible guys ever to ride the Tour de France. You can compare them to people like Bartoli and Coppi, or Poulidor and Anquetil. Yeah, but they didn't always finish 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. This is exceptional. And of course, it's made the fortune for Jonas, and he's become the biggest star that Denmark's ever had. And the crowds, the people just love him. Never forget when he went back after his first victory, and the reception in Copenhagen when we'd left it 3 weeks ago, and he comes back as the winner. It was unbelievable. It was a superstar of another bloody planet. So, I think we're going to see these guys go head-to-head again. I think Jonas will carefully plan, because that crash and the long delay in recovery, how he got on that bike and rode the rigors of a 3-week Tour de France and finished second, that's just a champion to me. That's just a guy who does what he does best, and that's race a bike. So he's up against the other guy who does what he does best as well.
Yeah, and Phil, I'm going to make one more last point, and we'll put a pin in this. But one thing I was privy to as well, the morning of the last time trial, well, obviously it was starting in Monaco, not in Nice, but finished in Nice. But in the morning when we were at the port, I saw the director sportifs and the general managers of both UAE and Jumbo Visma get together and have a little bit of a kumbaya good game kind of thing, like you would see at the end of any kind of match. And it was really cool to see the respect that they had with one another. And it's not just the two riders that are pushing themselves to new heights. It's the two teams in entirety that have been pushing themselves so far. I mean, you think of the teams, what UAE, when Tadej was first riding with his team, the team was okay. It wasn't great, but now this team is incredible. I mean, they could have 3 different Tour de France teams if they want to, and just be as deep as they. And so the same thing we had the same conversation with Visma, and they continue to up the bar and up the bar and up the bar. Obviously, it takes a lot of money as well, and there's a lot of teams that are just really just trying to get the scraps behind them. I mean, they bring in Remco Evenepoel, and we have Bora with Red Bull, and that's going to be a big addition going forward with Primoz Roglic, but maybe not having the same kind of star power behind that. So that was really neat to see. So I would just like to say that it's not just the 2 champion riders who are just incredible. Like you said, you will go in the history books as 2 of the best that ever raced their bikes, no doubt about that. But it's also going all the way deep into the peloton. And actually, this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about with the speeds of the peloton, because that's exactly what's happening. These guys continuously lift the bar of the whole peloton.
Go to that, Christian,
go.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think Vingegaard can win the Tour again while Pogacar is taking part?
Yes, I do believe that he can. I do believe that this is an open bike race. I believe that there's so many different other factors that go into and that's why we have a bike race. You know, anything could happen. You can have sickness, and you come to the line not as fresh as you should be. Like I referenced before with the crash that he had in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So first and foremost, you have to get to the start line as fit as you possibly can. And so many different factors come into that. We just talked about this little bit of clickbait of this article about, is he going to do the Giro d'Italia? That's a big risk. You're racing 21 more days where you have 21 more opportunities that you could have a crash that is completely out of your control. If somebody else crashes, or it's wet, or you have flat tire, whatever. In training, those come down by tenfold. So yes, I think that there's every chance in the world that Jonas could still win a third Tour, no doubt about that. Tadej has the momentum though, and the momentum is in modern sports these days. When you have the momentum, it's really hard to get that back. So I think that they have to get that back in their way, some way, shape, or form. And yeah, I think it's totally within the realm of possibility that he wins again. It's hard though, isn't it, Phil? Because what you saw this year was incredible, right? I mean, you've never seen anything. We didn't think we'd ever see anything like that. After Merckx, you think, well, that was a different time, and that's not going to happen again. Modern cycling, this is not going to happen. It's just not. Stop talking about it. It's not going to happen. Well, it already happened. It just happened. And now we just have reset the clock yet again. And it's hard to think that anyone could beat him. But I think it would be ridiculous to say that. I think even Tadej, there's a reason why he gets up every morning, to make sure that no one could ever catch him. And as long as Tadej, and I think we've been saying this since day one, as long as he's having a good time, which he seemingly always is having a good time and truly enjoying the sport like a youthful kid, then I think it's going to be very hard to beat him. But the second it becomes a job for him and he gets a little bit tired of that, then I think that's when people are going to start taking pot shots.
Well, I think that's quite right. He'll lose his drive and his will to win, because the worst thing that can happen to anybody in a bike race is a crash, which ends either your career or your season or whatever. You fell off quite a few times in your career, Christian. Did you ever put yourself in that situation? Because when Paul Show and I used to be commentating, we go, oh God, Van der Velde's fallen off again. Where he's holding his arm, he's done his collarbone. I don't know how many times you broke your collarbone, Christian, but and then your dad would ring up and say, don't say those things about my son and all that, But I'll tell you what, were you in a situation like the Giro d'Italia to ride it or not, or the dangers of crashing and then not getting to the Tour or whatever?
I think for me, I don't think the risks were, even though I had some of the worst crashes ever in the Giro d'Italia, and it really took away a lot from my 2009 push for the Tour de France. I think it gave me a lot, though. I was one of those riders who really needed a lot of time on the bike, a lot of stress on the bike to really come to my best. And that's a lot of times why I was better almost in the second Grand Tour of the year than the first. So yeah, for me, the Giro helped me. And if you can get through the Giro healthy and you don't have to push too hard, and then the big difference this year was that there was 5 weeks instead of 4 weeks in between. So you have enough time to rest for Tadej in between the two. then I think it's fantastic. There's no way you could ever train as well as you have to race for 21 days in Italy. But then again, like I said, in this day and age, with the stress that these guys are under and the speeds they have to go in and the different kind of inclement weather, for example, and racing your bike flat out like that, sometimes the risk is not worth it. And especially if you're really trying to control everything within the team and you're trying to control the program, which Visma has done so well with their training camps and bringing all the riders together, even the families get together, making them really have a home environment. And in Teen is usually where they do this before the Tour de France up at altitude. So I don't really see that happening with Jonas. And look, you can't follow what others are doing. If you continuously follow what others are doing and try to mimic their preparation, you're always going to be behind and you're never kind of going to catch them. You have to do the best, what you think is the best thing for your riders and your team. And if that is the truth, then you're not trying to replicate what Ted has done, then great. But if you're trying to replicate what someone else is doing, I don't think that's ever a good equation. So I have utmost confidence what they're doing over there at that camp, but the new riders that come over to them and what they become within 6 months' time. What we saw with Matteo Jorgensen this year was nothing short of incredible as well. I mean, this is a guy who was a good rider on Movistar, and now he's a fantastic rider, one of the best in the world. I mean, winning Paris-Nice and what he did for Jonas during the Tour de France, and he's not the only one who's come over and done this. So we'll see. I'm with you though. I think that he has a great chance of doing it, and he's gonna, if nothing else, it's going to be an incredible battle yet again.
Well, you mentioned speed there, Christian, and I guess the guys at the training camps will be taking no risks going down the mountains as a group training for the upcoming season. But the facts are there. We are getting some very serious crashes now in cycling, and it's not involving motor cars, not involving anybody else. It is pure speed. And Christian Prudhomme has said that in the last week or so, that he thinks the riders are going too fast. But it is a bike race. How do you slow them down? Guys in a bike race are doing just that. You can't blame the roads, the traffic humps, the traffic fence. You can't keep on doing that. It's moments of desperation. They got to fight for their position and they've got to hang in there. They know when the race is at a crucial point. For a start, Christian, how much more work can they do to make these bicycles go faster and make them lighter? Because Trish, my wife, she thinks that's the whole reason for all these crashes, the bikes.
I really think it's the depth of the peloton, Phil. Honestly, I mean, when you have the capabilities, let me back up. The stress within the peloton is changed over the years. When in my generation, it was already starting to heighten with dominant teams all trying to smother the front, make sure that they're the only ones on the front. And that would be like the last 20 kilometers. And then it became the 50 kilometers. And then now there's stress all the way pretty much from the start of the race to the finish of the race. And there's only so much room on the front. And the biggest difference that I've seen personally, and especially going back onto the motorcycle for the last 2 years, to really see the depth of the peloton in general. There used to be, at one point in time, there'd only be a few riders who could ever even get to the front of it. And you just knew your place within the peloton. Like if you weren't strong enough, you stayed at the back or the middle. Now the riders are so much stronger as a whole that they could make it up to the front. And if they have to take the risk to go into a corner to pass some people, they're going to take that risk. And sometimes that's the only way you're going to be able to get up there. And of course, the stress with the teams, making sure that you're at the front, staying with your teammates, it ends up just continuously heightens. And in fact, though, I will say this year, I didn't feel like there was that many crashes in the Tour de France. I felt like it was one of the safer ones that I've ever seen. So, but I will say when they do crash, though, now, Phil, it's apocalyptic because they are going so fast. But the speed, the acumen of the average rider on the descents with the new tires, here they're racing 28, they're tubeless. We have obviously disc brakes now. It's a lot easier to brake or do some late braking. It's terrifying how fast they go. I mean, if you're on the motorcycle chasing these guys day in and day out, it is unreal. Lawson Craddock 2 years ago, I talked to him. He was in the breakaway, and this is deep into the Alps in the third week of racing. And I was behind them in the breakaway, and I was like, geez, you guys were absolutely flying. And he said to me, I was absolutely terrified. Look, I was a good descender, he said, when I came into the peloton 10 years before this. But I never evolved. And of course, when you start having children, you start having second thoughts, right? With every passing children, maybe you give them another meter, and that plays into the equation as well. And I had the same thing. But he said he never evolved, and now the guys continue to go faster and faster, and they grew up with it. The younger kids, they grew up with disc brakes. They never had rim brakes. They always had tubeless tires. You have it on the back of your head that you're still on rim brakes and sew-up tires. So things change in the evolution of the younger riders having the know-how. I don't think it slows down. In fact, it's just going to continue to speed up. And what the race programmers or what the Tour de France and the ASO and Christian Prudhomme do to make it a safer race, I don't know. I mean, the best places to make the difference sometimes is on the descents now, not the ascents, because again, the depth of the peloton is so amazing. You still have 20, 30, 40 people going over a category 1 climb, whereas there used to be only 7 or 12 riders going over that. So now you have to make the risk, you take the risk on the descents or into the race. So I think it's endless.
A few years ago, I remember the whole peloton go over the top of the Vande as a peloton because it was a hot, sunny day, a bit like today. And at the bottom, I remember DD2 had fallen off sunstroke. Peloton climbed as a complete peloton. And that's the way it was. Finished down the other side in Carpenter. It was almost a bunch sprint. But the thing is, this is not new. We have been going faster and faster ever since the Tour began. Of course, we have not in the pre-war years. They didn't have the bikes to get up the hills, never mind they're allowed to walk. But before you were born, Christian, I was on the Tour de France. And I have to tell you that back in, my very first day on the Tour de France, I thought I was joining a car race, not a bicycle race, because we were all allowed to drive 1,000 meters in front of the peloton or the lead group. And our radios could speak to us, but we couldn't speak to any organization member. And so they would just say, accelerate, accelerate, go faster. And then the peloton would slow down, we all slow down. But every 20 minutes or so, it was like we were in a car race. And I was frightened because I was the driver. Most of the drivers were rally drivers. That was their job when they weren't driving on the Tour de France. And they used to tell me stories about how the discs on their cars were bright red in the Monte Carlo rally when they go down the Alps at high speed. He says, you don't stop because the brakes go on fire. And so you keep going till the wind cools them down, they go out again. I had my brakes go on fire on the Puy de Dôme, and they burnt out because the riders are chasing you. Not up, by the way, we climbed up at the Queen Home. I've seen cars crash. One year, 7 people died on the Tour de France. There was policemen involved, the mechanics died. When I came down the mountains with a team car once, the team car didn't make the left-hand bend on the hairpin, he sailed off into space. But in those days, they didn't have doors on the car, and the mechanic and the driver jumped out. The car went way down. It was the front page of Liège. It was a pin spot at the bottom of the ravine. They only fell 40 feet, and the injury was a broken leg. And so I was never so pleased when I finished driving on the Tour de France. Being on television, it saved me. Initially, I was doing certain broadcasts and only small time at the end. So we started in the villages with the riders, and then had to make 2.5 hours on the race over the next 5 hours of racing. And then I jump on TV and call the race coming in. But so the madness has always been there because they're now worried for the safety of the cars as well, big time, especially the motorbikes, who are right with the riders. I mean, you'd never catch me being a cameraman on the Tour de France in the hottest day, never mind the wettest day. These guys get the most brilliant shots alongside that bike rider who is descending. And I've followed Sean Yates once in the Tour de France, 110 kilometers an hour. That's in excess of 70 miles an hour. Yates came down this mountain. I was behind him. And I said to Paul Sherman, I said, he's never going to make this left-hand bend. It's impossible. Because I was backing off in the car. He made it. But, you know, there's always been that will to win, the ambition. And he's never going to slow down now. And you can, in motor racing, if there's a problem, they put a yellow flag on in F1. That means the riders have to back off the gas pedal until the problem's solved. You try putting a yellow flag up in the Tour de France when it's coming down a Pyrenean climb, a pass. Expect to ease off because they're coming down too fast. I don't know the answer. I honestly think there isn't.
I'm with you, Phil. But I tell you what, I think a good answer, though, to see what it feels like again, I think you should go on the moto one day. I'll take your spot in the booth for a day and you go on the motorcycle. Come on.
Oh no. I say to Bob Rowe, when I see the weather, I see what's coming in, I see the chaos out there. I said, "Oh God, Bob, aren't you glad you haven't got Christian's job this morning?" Man, he says, "I sure am." But you do a great job, Christian, and we'd miss you dreadfully off if you weren't able to get in amongst it. You bring the race alive out there, but I do feel for you, and I don't want your job.
No, I don't blame you for a second. Much safer, nice air conditioning. It is so bloody hot out there as well. But I will say it's the best job in the world and the worst job in the world at the same time. I mean, to be able to be in the action and even back there, Phil. I obviously hadn't been in the caravan since I was getting water bottles in my last Tour de France, but being back there again, starting last year in the Basque Country, I couldn't believe the stress even in the caravan. I mean, everything, there's more stress. They're pushing and shoving everywhere. And I think something had to give. And I think last year there was a big breaking point, especially with the motorcycles. I will say the commissaires who really restrict us this year was a big change. And so they made sure that we were out of harm's way at all times. And if we were ever ahead of the race, we were way far ahead of the race. So there is a mindset change that is happening right now. And there needs to be, because there's so much. If you've never been to the Tour de France, you're always surprised by how many motorcycles there are, how many cars there are in support of the bicycle race. And you think the bikes are just an afterthought of how many vehicles there are actually going and doing the race itself, like Phil was saying originally. So it is a lot. It is a chaotic, beautiful dance that happens for 21 days all over the course of France. But it's a sight to behold. And I don't know how it's going to be able to be any safer, like you said, though, Phil. I really don't. With the pressure and the stress and the sport itself getting bigger every year, it's just going to get faster and faster.
Because they're chasing, I can call it big money in the Tour de France. They hardly ever put the prize money up year by year, but it's close to kudos. And everybody knows what victory in the Tour de France means to a young rider's future, not just in cycling, as in the case of Vingegaard and in the case of Pogacar in their respective countries where they're superstars. But the organisers are very conscious of it. And of course, what is happening these last couple of years, we're getting deaths. And nobody wants deaths in the sport that was comparatively free of any serious injury throughout since inception, to be honest. But the organisers have made a big effort, I believe. The Tour leads the way too. First of all, more barriers coming more than a kilometre back from the finishing line, so the crowd don't squeeze out the road that's there. Or even on the climb at the Puy de Dôme, spectators aren't allowed at the Puy de Dôme on the occasions they use it now. And the same on the Vande, much more barriers are required. And the signs, which I think are very effective, flashing a bend, just running up those illuminations, indicating that there's a left-hand bend very sharp in 50 meters or whatever. The riders themselves point out problems. They don't want to hurt each other because they know one day they might be the second rider who doesn't see the central barrier that they're about to hit. I just don't. What do you think can be done to continue the effort? Because we all want the road safety. I don't think there's a single person against making the race as safe as possible.
Yeah, when you really think of the crashes that are the ones that really take the most riders out, it's usually in at least the past 2 decades, I would say, it would be the riders having the massive crashes that are completely out of your control. They have a massive. And usually it's on a big straight road. And those are where the big crashes happen, Phil, where you take 50, 60 guys all go down at the same time. This gives me a little bit of fright going into this next year's Tour de France, where there is a sprint stage in stage number 1. Last year's race, or this year's race, I should say, stage 1 had 11,000 feet of climbing. And everyone really knew who was going to be the best riders already after stage 1. And it really kind of deflated the peloton. It wasn't as much stress going into that first week of racing. Whereas this year is going to be almost an old school mentality of the way the race is going to unfold a little bit, going on the north of France all the way into Bretagne. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, ironically, the big crashes, though, and I remind people of this all the time, are on a big straight highway. It's not a small technical road. Sometimes a small technical road is actually safer because it elongates the peloton. So if someone does take a risk through a corner, it's only going to be 1 or 2 riders that actually go down. It's not going to be 40, 50, 60 riders who go down. Because if you're packed into like sardines, you're going down. It doesn't matter.
That's what's changed. We never used to get those big cracks and catching all the favorites. They never did that. they'd fall in place in the peloton, but they weren't the favourites. The favourites were always out of trouble. That's not happening. It's a changing face, but it's going to erupt, I think, next year, and I think we're going to have to watch what goes on. But I hope there's nothing serious happens. I mean, the sport is evolving all the time. There's a lot of money in it in many ways now for big victories. The ambitious kids, as I call them, because that's what they are. We've talked about the youngsters coming through over the last 5 years. They're here now. They're almost going to become ulcers, but they are so good. And if you speak to Eddie, which I do occasionally, he tells you how it's changed, how different it is. And it wasn't like that in his day. And his first thing is, look at the money they make. Huh? I didn't make so much money.
Eddie's just fine. He's going to be okay. And the grandchildren will be just fine. so Phil, well, I was just going to say real quick, this will be 53 for you next year, 53 tours?
I can never work it out. 73 was the first tour. So, yeah, it'll be, I don't know what, 53, yeah. Yeah, 53.
Wow. Oh, my goodness, Phil. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go till...
53, and he died soon afterwards.
I'm gonna have to go till I'm 79 if I even want to catch you. But I mean, you just keep on elongating your career.
That's all right. I'll never die at 79. That's okay.
you went right past it.
Now, I'm looking forward to it in many, many ways. It'll start for me in the Tour Down Under in Australia, then of course Paris Roubaix. We'll meet along the way, but I'll tell you. At this time of the year, all I talk about are the rhinos because we're in a war zone here where the poachers try to grab them. And we grab them and hope to get them in jail. But a couple go down for 25 years for stealing the horn, so that's great. It's a different world. And then people stop in places like Palaboa. It's a real African town and mines. And they just say, Phil Liggett, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm on holiday. Ah, man, come and organize a bike race for you, one of them said. I said, I don't organise bike races this time of year. I'm on holiday. It's just cycling is a kingpin for us all, mate. I'm looking forward to going back to Australia. The great thing about the Tour Down Under is that you get to stay in the same hotel as the riders for the whole week, and you can talk to them in a relaxed atmosphere, no pen and paper, and you build your stories for what we tell you in the Tour de France. Yeah, it's been absolutely. And don't forget, of course, the Tour de France will be back on, and we'll have a great time. Yeah, and if you've got any questions, put them in our topic section below, and we'll have a look what they say. And now, producers found where I'm hiding out, so I might have to come back and answer some of those questions. Hey, Christian, give my best to Bob when you see him again. And the team will be back again soon. And I think everybody, that's about it on the podium.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the next edition. Go well, man, and the best to you.
Likewise, Phil, and look forward to seeing you on the. And you know what? Maybe we could put you on the motorcycle. We have an uphill time trial next year, and I think we could put you on the motorcycle for that day. Actually, that would be we'll that's not too risky. We'll just go up to the Parasaur. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. They wonder who this old man is on the back of the motorbike because one of the riders in the Tour de France. No, thanks very much, Christian, and have a great Christmas, mate, and keep them wheels turning, even though the weather's probably a bit chillier than here in Africa.
A bit. Say it just for me. Be good. Good to see you, Phil.
You too, and you. All the best.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.